percent that the COVID could be sexually transmitted, but that's the word on the curb this week. So y'all just be careful. I guess the other thing that is going on is people are not social distancing. Y'all. Now, I don't want to be a hypocrite because I've definitely, last night, for instance, while everyone was watching Jill Scott and Erykah Badu get down for the crown, which, what a win for us. First of all, both ladies looked extremely amazing. They're both like these amazing ray of lights. I sat in my car with my cousin, shout out to Zach, and we just drank champagne and smoked and, talked and paid attention a little bit to Erykah and Jill, but not that much. But I think there's no way that you can call a winner on that. But coming up next in the Versus performance is, I believe, Nelly versus Luda. And I'm thinking that should take place next week, right? Is that who it is next? Nelly versus Ludacris, right? If I'm not mistaken. So we have another huge and exciting versus battle coming up and underway. So for all you girls, get your baby fat. For all you fellas too, get your apple bottoms. Let's get into it. The other thing that's been going on is the disproportionate amount of arrests and summonses being given out in major cities. Now, I'm here in New York, where 80% of the summonses that have been given by police for anything COVID related, 81%. So I think there's been about close to 400 summonses, not arrests, but summonses given out in New York City. And out of the nearly 400, 300 of them have been given to African Americans. In the city of Brooklyn, where we have all seen the others, including the Hasidic Jewish community and the white peoples who all took over Brooklyn. We have seen them not social distancing. However, the majority of arrests and summonses, I believe it is being quoted at so far 60%, or if not more, of the arrests that have taken place citywide have been of African Americans. So I know Mayor de Blasio, who has had his own contentious relationship with the New York City Police Department, is trying to figure that out now, but I don't know if there's anything to necessarily figure out. We all know what it is. New York City is a densely populated city with more than 8 million people living in within the combined 5 boroughs. And that is roughly the population of most states. So when you talk about dense population, and you talk about, disproportionate unfairness in the policing practices, not even just COVID related, but by and large, citywide, it is not a surprise to me that that would be the way that a lot of this is kind of panning out. Now, I don't know about the cities that you guys are in, but my hope is that, because listen, here's the thing. We have a traditionally cantankerous relationship with police, by and large. When I say we, I don't mean people of color. I mean Black people specifically have a very just a very volatile relationship, a very mistrust relationship with police in this country. And I think that neither side has done anything to necessarily help to quash the the underlying tension. So, I am somebody who has decided to take an active role in my local community council. And, one of the things that is imperative to me to work on is making sure that it is clearly understood by the constituents in my direct neighborhood, as well as the people who are, service workers, city service workers, whether they be policemen, EMT, firemen. When you have people who are working in communities that they don't reside and or belong to, I think that by and large is always a huge problem. I think that there is such a separation between people by and large, where the narrative, just the narrative of how we are depicted on television and how we're depicted in music and in the news, I can definitely understand how someone who would have to then who is then, for whatever reason, whether they choose to or whatever, who is then brought into these situations would feel like, I'm on one side and that person's on the other side. When in actuality, the majority of us want to live a peaceful life. The majority of us want to have non-problematic relationships with police in our community. But I think a lot of times we are all just kind of operating off of a biased narrative. So, that brings us into what happened and what is currently happening in the case of Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery is a young man who was fatally shot and killed sometime in February, if I am not mistaken. So, Arbery, 25 years old at the time, was seen in a video going for a jog in Brunswick, Georgia, right inside a mostly white neighborhood. Sunday, February 23rd at around 1 p.m. in the Satilla Shores neighborhood, which again is a suburban neighborhood about 15 minutes from downtown Brunswick, which is in Georgia. So Ahmaud was, enjoying, not much unlike I do. I'm actually preparing to go for a run this afternoon. And I've shared with you guys that I oftentimes go over to the white neighborhood because it is less densely populated and I can run without, worrying about the cars and the amount of people. And, anybody who runs knows that you can't run with a face mask. So you definitely need to, if you are living somewhere like in a major city or a place that is densely populated, running somewhere like that where you have to constantly put on and off your mask can be a little bit, and we're talking about late February where COVID was definitely on the rise and may not have been let's shut down cities and states. We were not under a government order at that time, but I can definitely understand why he would want to run in a different neighborhood. But at any rate, Ahmaud was tragically shot by the amazing father-son duo of Gregory and Travis McMichael. Now, initially, you will note that the first prosecutor, now, when the shooting took place, there was a fourth party involved who actually sat and videoed the shooting in its entirety. And he will come into play later, but this case was sloppy from the very beginning. So like I said, February 23rd was when Ahmaud unfortunately lost his life in a tragic battle between Mr. McMichael and his son. They went out after they saw Arbery running and allegedly assumed that he fit the description of a young man who had been the subject of some home break-ins in the Satilla Shore neighborhood. Now, it should be noted that this excessive break-ins that the McMichaels are alleging that there was only one break-in cited since the year had begun. And there was one report of a gun being stolen out of the back of a pickup truck. And it should also be noted that Arbery did not actually fit the description of the accused assailant who had been robbing local homes. So by the time the end of February hit, the Brunswick District Attorney Jackie L. Johnson had recused herself from the case, pointing out that Gregory McMichael, a former Glenn County police officer, had been a longtime investigator and friend in her office until his retirement last May. Then, as of April 1st, a local newspaper published the details of the police investigation. And the records had claimed that after McMichaels pursued Mr. Arbery, Travis McMichael and Mr. Arbery started fighting over the shotgun, at which point Travis fired a shot. And then a second shot later. And then apparently, if you see the video, you will hear that there were actually 3 shots. So then sometime in early April, a second prosecutor finds no reason to charge, and that second prosecutor was George E. Barnhill, the White Cross District Attorney, who advised the police that there was insufficient cause to arrest Mr. Arbery's pursuers. A third prosecutor then took over the case on April 13th, and that is Tom Durden of the Atlantic Judicial Circuit. And at that point, the February shooting had then made country headlines. And, I think, at this point this week, we saw a lot of celebrities repost Ahmaud, especially as of Friday, as Ahmaud would have been turning 26 years old. It is also worth noting that our president, who was asked on Friday by Fox News, had he seen the footage, and his quote was, "Yes, I have seen the footage. It is very disturbing." I will say that, and this is to quote Mr. Trump, I will say that looks like a really good young guy is what he said of Arbery. He further said, "It is very disturbing situation to me, and my heart goes out to the parents and the family and the friends, but yet we have to take it. Law enforcement is going to take a look at it," is what President Trump had to add to the statement. Listen, I think it's important to note that when we look at this point in my life, when I look at videos and pictures from the 1960s, 50s even, of people being hosed down, of people being attacked by the police with dogs for just standing up for their rights. Every time I see footage of a Black person being gunned down by the hands of not only police, but any white person, especially unarmed Black people, especially when it is in the name of vigilante justice.